Nobody gets along 100% of the time. I'm not trying to get like, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to get a perfection rate of, yeah, we've never argued ever. But it's like, we shouldn't be hitting this many roadblocks every fucking time, like multiple times a week. Like that's insane. Hello, and welcome to Situaseans podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Williams, aka Shawnee Do. You can call me Sean, Shawnee, Shawnee Do. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad that y'all are here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, I really appreciate all of you that listen to this podcast and, share with your friends, your families, your coworkers, your enemies, your frenemies. That person that's like, right next door, like anybody, like your neighbor. Hey, even if you share it with a random person on the train, like on the plane, wherever you are, hell, if you're in the water and, you're going for a swim and you see somebody else out there in the water with you, just be like, hey, listen to Situations podcast. Because you know what? Whenever you help spread the word and get this podcast out to other people, it helps this show grow because, at the end of the day, this podcast runs on you, the listener, and you, the viewers. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/@situationspod. So whenever you are watching or listening to this podcast and you're rating, you're reviewing, you're subscribing, like that helps this podcast grow. Can't do it without you all. And and for some of you that know about the Patreon, again, I want you all to subscribe to the Patreon as well. I really appreciate, those of you that have subscribed already. And yeah, keep spreading the word about that as well. Patreon.com/situationspodcast. So there, that has all the exclusive content and the screenshots and stuff like that I don't share, I guess publicly here on the show. So if you want the exclusive content, yeah, head on over to the Patreon. So I just appreciate you all tuning in, sharing this podcast with whomever it is that, like in your network and outside your network, because that helps this podcast grow. So yes, I know I haven't asked in a while, but this is literally a form of payment. I'm giving you free entertainment. If I'm giving you, free advice, to the best of my abilities. I'm just, pretty much kind of just helping out any way that I can with relationship advice. And you all are sending in your questions, your stories. Some of you may be saying, Shawnee, how can I ever repay you or thank you for the advice and being able to just share even your stuff on such an open platform? Well, the best way that you can, I guess, quote unquote, pay up for lack of better terms is, just leave a review. Just give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to Situations podcasts. Literally just hit that 5-star and then just type in a little quick 1-sentence, 1-paragraph review. Love the podcast because of this, or I really enjoy the content that this podcast has, because that helps others find this podcast helpful. So yeah, I know I haven't asked in a while, but yes, please rate and review. And yes, follow us on all social media. You know the drill. You can find us. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Also, another thing I wanted to call out that I haven't called out at all on this podcast, but it's all over social media, is the fact that we have merch. Yes, we have merch. And so if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to drop like a little image right here of the merch that we have. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see some of the merch that we have. So I'm hoping that you decide to, buy some of the merch And that also helps get the word of this podcast out there. So if you want to, kind of be an early adopter and get some of the merch, just go to situationspodcast.com and then click on the merch tab. Once you do that, it'll take you right to our merch store. You can see everything that we have in stock. There is no limit on how many things you can buy. We have stuff in stock, so you don't have to worry about, oh, wait a minute, that's on back order because there's a limited supply. Nope, there's no limited supply here. We got all the goods. So yes, if you want merch, go and get it and then tag us in it. Take a picture of yourself in your merch or whatever, and then tag us. We'll repost that on our social media because that's how much we love our listeners and our followers and our subscribers and anybody that interacts with this podcast. We fucking love y'all. So, I love y'all. So yeah, hop on that. So today we're going to be talking about whether or not you should get back with your ex. Now, that is a tricky topic and conversation to have and a tricky situation. But hey, there are a lot of people out there that do have questions like that and people that do and do not get back with their ex. So yeah, we're going to be kind of talking about that. And then we also have a listener submission. Yes, I love when you all submit your stories, your questions. So yes, we have a listener submission, and the listener submission is about trying to balance work, social life, and, just how there's not enough hours in a day and the best way to manage that time. So yes, we're going to be covering that as well. Again, whenever you all submit your stories and your questions and everything, that really helps this podcast as well. There's just so many ways that you can help this podcast grow. But whenever you submit your stories, your questions, anything at all, situationspodcast.com/submit. Whenever you, if you type that in and you go to the site, there's a form right there. You can submit anything. And yes, you can also submit your screenshots that to accompany your submissions. But of course, we censor out names and faces. We don't want to, kind of cause a riot here. But yeah, submit your stuff. So it's right there. And whenever you submit your material, that is a drop of love onto my heart. So drip, 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 submit. And yeah, for those of you that could probably hear the sirens in the background, I live in the city. So, in Chicago, you hear sirens all the time. I live on the north side, but yeah, you always hear sirens and stuff like that. Hashtag city life, right? Kind of just jumping right on in, the big question of whether or not to get back with your ex. Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of people ponder and consider that, especially, depending on how close of a relationship it was with that now ex. So, it depends on how much time has passed since that breakup happened. So was it a month ago? Was it a day ago? Was it a week ago? Was it a year ago? So there are so many different factors and timelines that kind of play into, whether or not one should consider getting back together with their ex. And what was the breakup like? Was that an amicable breakup? Was it a easy, seamless breakup? And of course, at the end of the day, no breakup is easy. But at the same time, was it a breakup that was okay, I see that we both see that we're at different parts of our lives, so we're gonna just make that decision to just both just end it here, and it was just a very civil breakup? Or was it the opposite? Was it a messy, stressful breakup and tears and yelling and screaming, and it was just an intense breakup, and it was just a very emotional breakup that put a lot of stress on your mental and emotional well-being. So that also plays a factor as well, because if it was a bad breakup, it's less likely that one or both of you would be yeah, let's hop right back in, after we've spent some time away. So it depends on what that timeline was. And, can you see a future with that person after everything that went down the first time around. That's another thing too, because if you're getting back together with somebody, you both have to take into consideration how much time like has passed, but also take into consideration, can you see a future? Because if you're getting back together and you don't see a future, you're not wasting not only your time, but you're wasting that other person's time. And we're only allowed so much time on this earth. Why would you want to spend that with somebody that is not going to work out with? Like either whether it's the other person is the problem, you're the problem, or you both are the problem. Because at the end of the day, it takes two to tango. But, whose dynamic was it that caused this to pretty much get to this point where it's like, okay, you're both like, yeah, like, fuck this, we're out. So you got to be able to see a future with that person, because if neither of you see a future together, then what's the point of jumping back in and just going through that same thing all over again? So take that into consideration as well. And then, have you broken up with each other before, or is this the first time that this breakup is happening? So if example, if you broke up before and you're just jumping right back on in, you're kind of wasting both of your time, because if it's like, if it didn't work out the first or the second time, and now you're doing this, this is like the third or fourth breakup, or you guys are breaking up every couple weeks or every couple of months or years or what have you. Why are you both playing this, I don't know, like this negative cycle? Like, it's got to end sometime and somewhere before someone gets like fed the fuck up and be like, yeah, I'm out. So what is it like, have you all broken up before? And if you have, then it's probably best to just not get back in again after you have both figured out that, yeah, we can't get along, or we aren't in the same places in our lives, because there are so many factors that can cause that relationship to end. Because one of the biggest factors that causes relationships to go sour and end is money, like finances. And especially in today's economy, unfortunately, with inflation, is getting more and more expensive to live. It's like you have to, it's crazy. I remember reading somewhere in like an article, it's like you have to make at least $60,000 to be able to like live on your own. It, like the way like, like rent is and everything. And this is before you count all the additional like, expenses of like, if you're, so you got like factor in like, your car note, you got to factor in your utilities and bills and stuff like that. You got to factor in any additional expenses, like, if you're traveling, like whether that be for work or whatever it is. And then on top of that, repairs. If you own a house or if you rent, you don't have to worry about repairs if you're renting, because that's covered by whatever apartment management community that owns that building. But at the same time, like, yeah, if it's auto repairs ain't cheap. So there's just so many different factors that also add into that. So yeah, you shouldn't break up or even stay in a relationship because of finances. You like, you know what I mean? Like if finances are hard, you shouldn't just be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stick with this person and just stay in this relationship, even though it's toxic, because I know that living on my own is going to be a financial burden. I can't afford it, or the other person can't afford it, or neither of us can afford it. So we're going to just, like be like, yeah, F it. And then on the flip side, you shouldn't stay together because of finances. Like, I'm sorry, yeah, you shouldn't like break up because of finances. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this person isn't making enough money, so we just split up. Like, try to find middle ground. Maybe that person is going through a rough patch in their life, and like they can find another opportunity or a side hustle to be able to afford to contribute evenly. So that's another thing as well. But kind of just, going back to it, if you've broken up before and this has been more than 2 times that you all have broken up, there's no point in doing it third, fourth, fifth, however many times after that. Like at some point you have to draw the line. You have to set a boundary. You have to respect yourself and realize that, hey, this hasn't worked the past few times. This is where it has to end. In my personal experience, I've only gotten back with an ex like an on and again, off again ex in like high school. But even then, I don't want to count that because that's like puppy love, high school relationship fling thing. So I can't really count that. But the first time that I would say I officially did get back with an ex was my last relationship that ended summer of 2022. So that relationship was toxic. And we were official from like July of 2020, but then I broke it off in around August, September-ish of 2021, because that entire year we were just arguing and the relationship just got toxic because she had so much hurt and trauma from her past. We both come from traumatic households. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused by my stepdad. She was physically and mentally and emotionally abused by her father. So we both come from trauma, and so we, both have that hurt child within us. But the thing is, I had so many positive outlets like theater, music, just different circles and different avenues that I put myself into, and like other positive outlets that I put myself into to get away from all the negativity that I was dealing with back at home. And she didn't have any of these outlets. And she had like a couple things, like maybe yoga and maybe music and I guess just small avenues here and there. But it wasn't enough to really get her out of that negative feedback or like that negative cycle of the things that was going on at home. And so she projected a lot of that stuff onto her friends, families, relationships. She would like in her past, she projected it like heavily into her past relationship and then projected it onto me in our relationship. And I just couldn't take it. I was just like, okay, you know what? Like I can't do this anymore. Cause we would argue every single day. Like she would just be petty about things like nickel and dime things. Like she would come over to my place, eat whatever, and I never really cared, like she would eat whatever, and then, which is like fine. Or like example, she would finish a whole box of cereal that I had. I would never care. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's no worries. It's just a box of cereal. I can buy more, whatever. But if I go over to her place and I have like a little bit of something, she's like, hey, I'm going grocery shopping, and like since you had a little bit of that, can you buy a whole nother case of this or a whole nother thing of this? Like, what the fuck? Like, yo, like I barely had any of it. If anything, I had a sample of it. But you come over to my house, eat my shit, and I'm not nickel and diming you. I'm just like, hey, don't worry about it. Like I'll buy more. Like that's why it's here. I have my groceries here because they're supposed to be eaten. So. But you want a nickel and dime with if I have a little bit of something, it's just like, it was just so fucking like triggering. And then on top of that, whenever we would argue, she would say, I hate you. And I was just like that alone is just so triggering too, because it's like, if you don't hate me, then you shouldn't say it, because she'll say, I hate you. I'm like, oh, you hate me? Are you sure? Yeah, I fucking hate you. And then 10 minutes later, or whatever, she'll come back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. And then it'd be too late, because it's like, you already said you hate me, and I told you how triggering that is, and you continue to still put me down, belittle me. So she was very, very, very hurt from her past, and it just kept, she just kept repeating the cycle in our relationship. And it just got to a point where it's just like, I couldn't take it anymore. So I left. And mind you, now those of you that know me personally know that I've been living on my own, forever. Like when I left home when I was 17, and I didn't get like my first like solo apartment until I was 19. And so, yeah, I've been living on my own space since I was 19. And I've never really, needed to like, I guess like have like roommates or anything like that, which is, I'm fortunate to be able to say that. I've only had roommates maybe like two different times in my entire life. But for the most part of my adult life, I've never had roommates. So, which is pretty cool. Not a lot of people can say that. But she was always living with other people or she had a lot of codependencies. And that was another thing that really trickled into this relationship as well. Because when she bought a condo, she bought a condo that she could barely afford to, live in on her own. So I moved in with her. I didn't even want to move in with her. But she guilt tripped me, which is like, oh, you must not love me, this, and that, and the other. And then I was like, okay, you know what, fine. I eventually gave in, but I was just like, I don't want to move in with you because we argue every single day. Why the fuck would I want to move in with you and then have to move out a few months later because I can't take it anymore? Which is exactly what happened. I predicted that shit. I ended up moving out a few months later. And so had to buy all new furniture because she convinced me to throw out my furniture, had to get all new things and everything. It really like ran my pockets for $5,000 to start over, to between application fees, first month's rent, buying new furniture and like getting situated all over again after I tossed out my stuff when I left my place to move in with her because she wanted me I was boundaries was another thing too. Like the fucking boundaries. Like I had set boundaries and she just crossed over those boundaries and I kept trying to give her the benefit of the doubt until I couldn't take it anymore. And so, I had to leave. So this is like August or September of 2021. I was done. And then like she reaches out a month later via text. And you know what? If you're watching YouTube, I'll show a little blurred sample of the text that she sent me. Now, if you are on Patreon, patreon.com/Situaseans podcast, you can see this message right here that she sent me that reeled me back in. This message literally was it. She was pretty much saying how she worked on herself and everything. But this message is really what brought me back in the second time around. I don't want to give too much details because again, that's for the Patreon folks. So you gotta subscribe to the Patreon. But I'm just going to say from a very high level overview, this text that she sent me reeled me back in and I gave it another go. And I regret going back into that, giving her a second chance because she didn't change. She didn't do the work on herself. And at the same time, again, this is a month later after I broke it off. Nobody changes in a matter of a month. But, that message she sent just really hit a soft spot in me. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just give it one more go. And I regretted it ever since because we just went right back to arguing like every day. Now, in the beginning, like I said, the first time around, we were arguing every day. There is no exaggeration. We were arguing every day. But the second time around, we were arguing every other day. So not as much as the first time around, but it was still enough to be triggering. Because long story short, nobody gets along 100% of the time. I'm not trying to get you know what I mean? I'm not trying to get a perfection rate of, we've never argued ever. But it's like, we shouldn't be hitting this many roadblocks every fucking time, like multiple times a week. Like that's insane. And so I grew up with my mom arguing with Flanders. For those of you that are new to the podcast, Flanders is a nickname that my stepdad got growing up because like on the block, like growing up on my block or whatever, people would just call him Flanders. It's a long story. Like go back a few episodes, go back to maybe episode 1 or 2. You'll get the backstory on that. But So my mom and Flanders argued every single day, and I just knew that growing up, I don't want to argue with a partner like that every single day. My ex-girlfriend, her mom and dad argued every single day. And a lot of arguing between like her and her siblings as well. So it's just like, like again, like of course siblings aren't going to get along all the time. Like, yeah, I've had my bickerings like with siblings or whatever, but the disagreements that I had with my siblings weren't on the same level as the disagreements that she had with her siblings. Like there's a lot to unpack with that as well. But there was just so much trauma that she let bleed into her adult life. And it just started to affect the people around her. And a lot of her friends would kind of just fold or kind of just let her project these feelings, and they just wouldn't like address that shit. And then when I came along, and when there was one time she was just like getting on her friends and then getting on me and just arguing in front of now she's arguing with her friends and then arguing with me in front of her friends. And like she was just causing like a lot of like just issues within like those spaces that I was in with her. And it's just like what the actual fuck? Like, and I just remember like that argument between like in front of her friends. I was just like, you know what? Like, it's crazy that you get to act out like this and your friends just have to just fold in line and just let you just act out like a child and not say anything. Well, you know what? I'm annoyed because you're getting on my case. I didn't even do anything, and like, and you're getting on me because you feel some type of way because your friend said some off-putting thing, and now somehow I'm looped in only because I'm like only because I'm trying to say like, hey, you shouldn't be arguing with your friend in front of like all of us. Like, let's figure it out like later. But it's a whole other thing. So. Yeah, you got to have boundaries. But like I said, after giving her a second chance, I just couldn't do it anymore. And that was the defining moment that I was like as far as that experience going like the second time around, the fact that I had to start all over and everything and kind of just, and then also it affected my mental and emotional well-being the first and second time around. But the second time around, I was checked out. I told her, hey, you know what? I really don't trust the fact that you've changed in a matter of a month of being apart. So I'm going to have one foot in and one foot out. And I just can't love you the same way that I did the first time around. And I told her those were my terms. If you have to be okay with that, if you want to give this a second chance. She said, hey, I'm cool with that because I can do that. Like, I hurt you. I know that I hurt you. And I just want to be in a better spot with you because I do want a future with you. Like, that's what she told me. And I was like, all right, well, you just have to be like, okay with the fact that, with those terms that I set, because I need to have one foot in, one foot out for my own protection so that you don't hurt my heart again, the way that you did the first time around. But of course, she just went right back to old habits, and I knew it was going to happen. And that's why when I broke it off the second time, it didn't really hurt much. It was the easiest breakup I've ever had because I was just like, hey, I told her what my terms were because I can't afford to have her hurt me like that again. She accepted those terms, and yet she still kept going back into old habits, and I can't do this no more. So, hey, I'm gone. But going through that whole experience for a second time, that is what forever sealed in my heart and on my mind and in my body that I will never, ever, ever get back with an ex because they are an ex for a reason. Everyone's situation is different, but I just know in my own personal experience, because of why that happened and everything that went down, that was like, yep, I am never getting back with an ex ever again. So many people do get back with their ex, and it's not unheard of, but sometimes it does work for people because with that time apart, it allows those individuals to do the work on themselves and then, kind of come back to that relationship, a better and healed person. So in some cases, it does work for people. Just because my experience was bad and it didn't work out for me doesn't mean it's not going to work out for you. Everyone is different. Every dynamic is different. Every relationship is different. And so it all depends on how you navigate it, because somebody could break up and then a whole month later they're working on themselves, they're being better, and then it's like they come back around. Wow. It works out because they've done the work on themselves in that short amount of time, or it can be years. So it doesn't matter how long of a timeline it was between that breakup and then getting back together. If you decide to do that, sometimes it'll work for people. There are cases out there where it's like, having that breakup was the best thing ever for that relationship because they came back as a stronger couple, And then sometimes it's the opposite. Having that breakup was the best thing for that couple because they learned from those experiences what and what not to do and how to navigate future relationships. And no relationship is perfect. I know for me on my end in my past relationship, because I did so much work on myself, she started to undo all that work that I did on myself because she just kept triggering me, just kept saying like damning things, kept being petty, kept demeaning me, and so it kind of like she would yell and just scream and fuss or whatever, just cuss me out. And I decided to just stoop to her level. All right, you want to give me that energy? I'm gonna get that energy right back to you. So I started yelling or whatever. I started cussing like, fuck you, I've never yelled at an ex like that. I've raised my voice like with my, ex-wife, and, she raised her voice, but we never screamed, yelled. I've never, ever between anybody that I've ever dated, had a casual relationship with, or, what have you. I've never yelled at an ex until I got with, my most recent relationship that's now my ex. That right there should have been an indicator, because she got me to that point, and it just started to undo so much work that I did on myself, because she would just gaslight me. And then on top of that, now this is a trait of mine that I know that I have, that I'm not proud of, but so if she would trigger me and just say and just do the most outrageous, ridiculous things, I would be vindictive. I'd be like, all right, okay, I'm gonna match that energy, and I'm gonna do and I'm gonna just just do the exact same thing. We that was my flaw in the relationship. I was vindictive. And the thing about it is, we all have traits that we're not proud of. But the thing is, if you're able to take those traits and turn it into a positive and not project those traits onto other people, you're able to learn from those experiences and not do that and not hurt other people, then that makes you a better person. You're learning you're learning to do the work on yourself and not subject others to those negative traits about you. So I did so much work on myself, and the things she was saying it would just bring me to those vindictive, traits. I was like, you know what? Okay. All right. I'm going to just match that energy. So the fact that she did so many things that got me to that point, that was also the indicator too. That was like, okay, now I'm yelling. I've never done that with an ex. I've never done that with the current relationship. I never yelled like that. I've never been so vindictive and so adamant about just getting even. I was just turning into a different version of myself that I did not like. And that is another indicator. People, if you find yourself having traits or expressing behaviors that you know are not your normal behaviors, and it's a trait and quality that you do not like, that is an indicator to get out, And there is no, I guess right or wrong answer about getting back with an ex. And that comes with a caveat too. As long as that past relationship that just ended, as long as that relationship wasn't an abusive relationship, it doesn't matter if it was, emotionally or mentally abusive, and God forbid, knock on wood, physically abusive. If it was abusive in any of those facets, then for sure, do not get back into that relationship. I know it's easier said than done. I know that there are people out there in relationships that they can't get out of because whether it's kids, finances, whatever it is. But I'm just saying, from a very high level overview, if you are in a abusive relationship, and even if it's I'll take it one step lower, not one step higher, but one step lower. If it's a toxic relationship, get out. Get out as soon as you can, and don't get back into that relationship. Don't let the other person bring you back in. And if you are that person, if you are the abuser, if you are the person that's doing that, you need to really look in the mirror and see why it is that you are doing that, and get therapy. Get a therapist. Do the work on yourself. Stop the fucking shit. Because as someone who was the victim of someone else's wrath, of especially in an abusive relationship, my stepdad was abusive to me. Flanders, he was abusive to me. My last relationship, mentally and emotionally abusive. I have a very low tolerance for abusive people. And so if you are in a relationship like that, or if you are the abuser, if you're the abuser, you need to stop that shit, get help, realize what you're doing, and become a better person. Do the fucking work. If you are the person that's being abused, please get help. As far as get someone to help you, a friend, a family. If it's toxic like that, then call the police. You do not need to subject yourself to that over and over again, and just going with the flow and not doing anything about it. You need to find someone to help you to get out of that. And then also do the work on yourself. Go to therapy. So yeah, it's important to avoid those situations if you can. So I love you. I love you all. You have to have self-love. Self-love is so important, because if you don't love yourself, if you don't respect yourself, you can't expect others to do the same and love and respect you. So please, please, please advocate for yourself, because no one can advocate for you better than you can advocate for yourself. In the end, you just need to evaluate within yourself and your ex, as far as, considering getting back into that relationship, giving it another try. You both need to just ask yourself if it's worth it. And, have you and your ex healed enough, and have you both done the work on yourselves, to give it another shot? So if it wasn't a toxic, abusive relationship, if it was not any of those type of relationships, then yes, like I just said, you and your ex need to just evaluate and ask yourself if it's worth it, and then have you both done the work before you jump back in. So yeah, look within yourselves, see if it's a fit, and if it's not, hey, move on with your lives. There are other people out there that are for you, and you will find your person. Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or you just think it would be fun to have your own talk show. Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Hey, can I let you in a little secret? So I use Buzzsprout to host Situaseans podcast, and let me tell you, it has been the easiest tool I've ever come across for publishing and running a podcast. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So come on, join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Follow the link in the show notes, and that'll let Buzzsprout know that we sent you. And guess what? That gets you $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan, and overall, that helps support our show. Let's create something great together. All right, so we got a listener submission, so let's go ahead and dive right on in. All right, so this listener submission, this one is a good one. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right on in. So it's, how do you balance a healthy work life, personal time, social time, friends and family, dating, and hobbies? There's just not enough hours in a day. Signed, Busy Bee. All right, Busy Bee, thank you so much for, sharing your story and your question. Yeah, this is a really good one. So yeah, with this one, it's important to have balance in your life and break up the different avenues and spaces that, we all exist in. So you can't spend too much time in one avenue, spend so much time in work and that you're not focusing on and enjoying yourself in these other parts of your life. Don't spend all your time, being social and then not giving enough time to, your friends, your families, like everything in between. So you have to navigate that accordingly and be mindful about that. And we kind of covered this in a previous episode before about managing time and managing different parts of your life and to make sure that you are being present in all the different areas of your life. But yeah, so if you're having trouble finding balance, then definitely evaluate the things that you value most. And so see how you can split your time between these different facets, so, and make sure that you're not overwhelmed because, for example, if you're working too hard or, you got hours and you can working so long and hard that you can barely find time to do anything else. It's just you're just working. You're just not living your life to the fullest because you're just buried in work, like I had just said. And then, example, if you're out there on the dating scene, how many dates are you going on in a month? Is it more? Is it a lot of dates? And are you really trying to go out here and spend all these times on all these different dates and stuff like that? And, that also costs money. So you got to be mindful about that. And, you got to make sure that you're not overbooking yourself because if you're overbooking yourself and just going on I don't know, 4 or 5 dates out of per week, how are you going to really make a good connection? Because now you're just all over the place, So I get that you want to, if you are out there dating, where you have to be mindful about how many dates that you're going on in a month. And this is coming from somebody who was a serial dater because I would go on 3 or 4 dates a week back, back, when I was serial dating. It wasn't until earlier this year that I was okay, let me, take a step back and reevaluate because like I said, after my last relationship, I went back on the dating apps and I was just serial dating or whatever because I was just you know what? I want to find another connection. But you got to be mindful about how many dates that you're doing. And then, it's so important to have time to yourself and have time for your hobbies. We love hobbies. We love time to ourselves, self-love. Yes, go all the way the fuck off. Actually, that is a merch item that we have in store. Get your go all the way the fuck off t-shirts. Like that one is a good one as well. And you know what? I'm going to drop a promo code too. It's going to be right. Like, so yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, this is going to be a YouTube exclusive only because I want to get more people out there, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But yeah, if you're looking right here, like this is the go all the way the fuck off t-shirt. And yeah, here's a promo code for it as well. So yeah, if you're on YouTube, go all the way the fuck off. But yes, we love time to ourselves. We love being able to do the things that we want to do to make sure that we're, taking a step back. We're being one with ourselves. We're healing. We're doing the work on ourselves. So yes, self-love is self-care. Like get a pedicure, get a massage, get a manicure, do all the things, or even if it's just sitting at home watching TV, or if it's, doing just sitting meditating or doing yoga, whatever it is that, like cooking, like anything. Any of those activities that make you feel one within yourself, do it. Like you deserve to have that time to yourself. And it's okay to cancel plans, or move things around on your calendar to fit your agenda. You should evaluate your calendar to make sure that you can accommodate these different things in your life. So yeah, try to see all the things that you have on your calendar per week and see what's taking the most of your time outside of work, of course, because work is important. That's your livelihood. But yes, look and see what it is that you got going on for the week and how you can prioritize or move things around to fit accordingly. Because you don't want to do more like this one thing and never have time for the other. So you can also do that. And most importantly, you don't want to take on more than what you can handle. As someone like myself who I've burned myself out, more times than I can count. And so you got to make sure that you can evaluate and see what you got going on to see how if you can take something off your calendar for that week to kind of allow you to decompress so that you're not overbooked, then do that. That's okay. And that's the best way to kind of go about it. You got to be honest with yourself so that you're not taking on more than what you can handle. And for example, I use Google Calendar, for my social calendar, because if I don't have Google Calendar, if it's not on my calendar, I'm not going to know what the fuck it is I'm doing that day. Like that, I'm just going to be honest with it. Like that's just how my schedule is because I do so much. I do theater. I make music, hence Shawnee Dude. That's my rapper name. Yeah, I do this podcast. I like I said, I do a lot of acting in commercials and stuff like that as well. And, theater acting, like I just said, so it's like I do all that. Yeah, I'm traveling as well. So I got that going on. Work, social life, I'm also out here dating as well. So I got these different things going on. And it's the only way that I can keep up with it is looking at my Google Calendar and seeing, okay, what do I have this week? Because, that's the only way I'm going to be able to know. And there is a running joke between my friends and I, because they have seen my Google Calendar. To my friends that are listening or watching, the Google Calendar. But so my Google Calendar is, and those of you that have been listening to this podcast from day one, you know about the Google Calendar, I guess joke too, because for those of you that are new and just tuning in, I have a Google Calendar of of course, my Google Calendar has all the things that I have going on for that week or month or year, or whatever. But also, what's on that calendar are the dates that I have lined up and stuff like that. And my Google Calendar is each first date is highlighted with a rose. And I do put second, third dates and stuff like that on my calendar as well. But the first date is the one that I highlight with the rose. I have a little rose emoji next to it so that I can because I was trying to figure out, how many first dates am I going out on, every year? And it was 170, as of earlier this year. Of course, I stopped serial dating, it's just that was the running gag. It's like, how many dates is Sean going on this month? Like, okay, well, let's see how many, bookings on this calendar has a rose next to it, because that equals the first date. But yeah, so anyway, have your have your calendar or some type of task app that lets you know what you got going on for that week, and you can prioritize, and I highly recommend Google Calendar because it syncs across all your devices. So if you got something coming up, you can set a reminder to go off on your phone, to go off on your computer, to go off on whatever device you have. So, it can send you an email. Hey, reminder, you got this going on this week. You got this reservation going on. You got this, this flight coming up. So I highly recommend you look into a calendar to make sure that you can kind of prioritize all the different things that you got going on, because it's so important, so I recommend putting things in a calendar. And again, from a high level overview, go back and see what you got going on for that specific month, and then work backwards. Okay, now what do I got going on for this week? Okay, what do I got going on, for these, like this day and the next day? So have an organized calendar or a sheet or a chart, whatever it is, so that you know what your agenda looks like, and then start to move things around. Okay, maybe this thing can be done at the end of the month. Maybe this can be done, next, I don't know, like in the fall, in the summer, like next year, whatever it is. That way you have an organized you have an organized list of what it is, of all the things that you got going on, and you can prioritize accordingly, and you'll be all right. So time management is important, but make sure that you're putting yourself first, your calendar for yourself, that's first, and then prioritize, work, friends, family, in whatever order that works for you. But yes, please make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, because you fucking matter. I just want to thank the listener again for submitting your story and your question. I really appreciate it. It's a drop of love on my heart. Yeah. And so, again, if you're at home, on a plane, on a train, wherever you are, take Situaseans podcast with you. We are an audio podcast. We are a video podcast, so you can watch us on YouTube, or we're on, and as far as audio, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen and take Situaseans podcast with you wherever you go. And there are, 3 ways to submit your story and your question and your situation, whatever it is that you're going through. The first way is going to situationspodcast.com/submit. That's the first way. The second way, you can call our hotline, 312-586-2664. It's a voicemail hotline, so you just let it ring. No one's going to answer. It's going to go right to the voicemail. You leave your voicemail, and then we'll play your voicemail live on the show, and then we'll unpack it together on the show. It's an anonymous, submission that way as well. The submission form that I just told you about, that's anonymous. And then the third way is if you can email your submission, situationspod@gmail.com. So I just gave you 3 ways to submit your situation. So submit, and drip, drip, drip. All right. And then also, yes, like I just said earlier on today's episode, please share this podcast with everybody. Please rate, review, and subscribe. I need more of you to follow our YouTube page, so hit that little subscribe button on the YouTube page. It's free. There is no subscription for YouTube. It's just free. Just click the little subscribe button, whatever. And then that way you're following our YouTube, and then click the bell icon. That way you'll get all the notifications whenever we post content, whenever we post reels or a new episode. So you got all the stuff there. I really appreciate all of you. I love you all so much. Much love, much happiness, much everything. And yes, I will see you all back here for the next episode in a couple of weeks.